I'm here with Congressman Phil Gingrey. He's from Georgia. You're from what part? What are you, Congressman?
Chuck,
from?
I grew up in the great city of Augusta, the home of the Augusta National. Proud that Condoleezza Rice is now a member. Billy Payne has done a great job there, and it was certainly time. But yeah, Augusta's a great city, and I still have some relatives and good friends from medical school, doctors that I practice with, and I go to Augusta and Aiken, South Carolina, just across the river where my 94-year-old mom lives. So I stay in touch with that neck of the woods.
Now, of course, you understand that being in movies and television and Hollywood, where I was associated with everybody, that you sound exactly like every politician that's ever portrayed.
Well, Chuck, can you get me a job? Can you get me another job?
I actually think I could, but unfortunately for them, you'd have to change your politics. I don't think I can go back there and work either.
Yeah, that's too big a sacrifice. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, well, it's great to have you here. I know that this is a big send-off for Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. I'm here kind of advocating for a group called Generation America. And what we do, in case you don't know, but being a doctor, it might interest you, we're kind of the antithesis of AARP. Because I think in the last couple of years at least, people have kind of understood that AARP is a left-leaning group and they're lobbying to the left, they contribute to the left, and people are, it's multi-billion-dollar insurance company, really. So people with your and my kinds of convictions and feeling really didn't want to contribute to people like that, and we had to give them an alternative. So we feel like Generation America is an alternative to AARP. And what I wanted to ask you, to get a little personal, because you may or may not know this, I really don't know, but since you're a doctor, how heavily does AARP lobby Congress? Because it stands to reason, I know they want Obamacare. Because they'll make $1 billion in the next 10 years off. Those are CBO numbers.
Yeah.
So we're lobbying against it. Actually, we would make money on that too with Medigap insurance, but we think it's just a hideous bill and wrong for the country.
Chuck, I'm really happy to hear about Generation America, first of all. AARP represents, what is it now, 37 to 40 million Americans. Anybody over the age of 50 that's willing to write that $35 or $50 check and get the magazine quarterly is a member of AARP. Your question in regard to the lobbying, they lobby heavily. Maybe not quite as much as Fannie and Freddie, but believe me, they lobby hard. And I have joined a group of physicians in a bipartisan way. Senator Coburn, Senator Barrasso, myself, Dr. Rowe, Dr. Bustani. We have written letters to Barry Rand, the executive director of AARP, and asking them for a sit-down meeting. We had a meeting. He didn't show.
He didn't show up?
No, his second in command was there. And again, it was so obvious to me that they weren't going to tell the truth to the American people, but more importantly, not be truthful with those 37 million folks that are members of AARP and are relying on them for sound, solid, honest information.
Well, I see their ads all the time, and they say they're a nonpartisan group. Well, they say it right in. They write it out in big banner. We are nonpartisan.
Well, and I guess if they weren't, their 501c4 or whatever their tax exempt status is should be pulled, because this is an organization, as you point out, that it makes tons of money, not on this membership dues, annual $50 a head. They're making money by getting royalties from supplemental insurance.
Well, they are an insurance company.
They're not actually an insurance company, as I understand it, but they United Healthcare, I think, is a company they endorse. They sell. They get a cut, I guess, of every supplemental policy that's sold.
Well, in all honesty, I mean, in fair disclosure, we find policies for our members that we think are policies that will suit their needs and their pocketbooks. We try to save them money. We go hunting for them. Yeah. So to give them options, I don't think AARP.
Yeah, but your organization.
I mean, it sounds like I'm doing a giant commercial. Well, really not. I'm just trying to give both sides of what's going on from your perspective.
Here's the point. Your organization would not have pandered to Obamacare, been one of the first in line to endorse it, because it would help you sell more supplemental insurance and get more royalties. Okay. You wouldn't do that.
That makes sense. I understand.
And this is the thing. This is the argument I have with the AARP. seniors desperately need accurate information. They don't need to be scared. They need to be told that Medicare is facing a fiscal cliff. It could be as early as
Paul Ryan's come along to do that, because I think he can make that case and really convince people.
Chuck, who better than Paul Ryan?
Absolutely.
You know, and he's an honest guy. He's smart as a whip, but he can explain things where the common man can understand
He's
it.
kind of the Milton Friedman of. I mean, I love Milton Friedman because he'd always reduce it down to the simplest common denominator, and Paul Ryan seems to have that ability.
I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
And so the battle is joined. I think now the seniors will understand you need to protect and strengthen what's there. You need to maybe reform it for future generations. And without kicking the can down the road, you can't. You keep doing that. The can's already been crushed. It's been kicked so many times. What does Obama do to solve Medicare? He forms IPAB, 15 unelected bureaucrats to say, well, Congress, are you seniors? We're going to cut so much next year, and Congress can do nothing to mitigate it.
Well, it's all smoke and mirrors, and you know, there are no three parts of our government. I mean, it's just total disregard of the Constitution, absolutely disregarding it, which just drives me insane.
Yeah, the czar creation, executive orders. You're absolutely right.
So see if you can back me up. This is my thought. I don't have history, but I think this is true. So Social Security, Medicare are out of money. We're finally to the point where they're out of money. Let's say. Now, I know it's going to be 12 years, 15, but we're really in bad shape. So everybody that's paid into Medicare, everybody that's paid into Social Security, all of these programs for seniors are now dried up. We have borrowed money to supplement what isn't there anyway, correct?
Absolutely.
And we will have to continue to borrow money to pay off those promises that we made. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
So the American people will then be indebted to whoever we borrow that money from for the second time. We paid for it to begin with. Now we're going to have to pay for it again. Is that correct?
That's exactly right.
Well, what kind of investment is that? People would just run from that if they were presented.
It's a poor investment. And on the Medicare program, on the hospital part, we were paying out more in claims than we were receiving in revenue from the payroll tax, starting in 2008, Chuck. So this has been going on for 4 years.
So you got to borrow money to
so
pay for that.
You're borrowing money to pay the claims. If we don't do something about Social Security before 2040, then the average recipient will get 70 cents on the dollar.
I want to ask you a question. Since we're off into Social Security, I know this gets really weedy and wonky, and I'm really not smart enough to follow it, but I know you're a very bright guy. You're in Congress. You deal with this all the time. Would you advocate the Chilean program? I mean, look, I know that in Chile, what was 1981 or something, they instituted this program. They had very few people on it, and then they had like 80% of the people on it. 20 years later, they were doubling their money.
Yeah, as Chuck, and I have to scratch my brain going back a little bit on that too, but as I understand the Chilean model, it's sort of a defined contribution plan, not a defined benefit plan where you're guaranteed a certain dollar amount.
Right.
You're given the opportunity to invest, and this is something
this is what scares everybody. They say, "Oh, invest! Ooh, I wouldn't want to do that."
But they're not dealing with an individual stockbroker who says, "Hey, buy 100 shares of Enron."
Exactly.
All of this is done through the Social Security trustees. It's a family of very conservative mutual funds that seniors could have a choice to pick from, with part of their payroll tax, not all of it, with part of it, and they would own that account,
and they can pass it on to their children.
Absolutely.
If we try to pass our Social Security, they put them in jail.
Chuck, if you or I dropped over at age 64 or 66 or whatever, then we would get very little, if any, benefit from Social Security. It'd go back into the pot for everybody else. But with this plan, at least a portion of that we would own, and we could leave to our children and our grandchildren.
So I don't want to keep you much longer, but since you're here, you're so knowledgeable on this, I've got to ask you. So we pay our money into Social Security, and Congress and the Senate says, "Oh, no, not going to touch Social Security. We got your." In other words, they get your money, they now control your money. They don't necessarily spend it on Social Security; they spend it on other stuff. Am I correct?
You're absolutely right.
So now they have control of your money, so that's power. And if they went on like a Chilean program or something like that, was a little more privatized, they would be giving up the power of that money. Is that correct?
Of course they would. And
so that's what it's really about, isn't it?
It is.
It's about government control of your money.
It is, and this has been going on for a long time.
Everything, all the social programs.
Sure, the payroll taxes go right into the general treasury. And when Social Security was started in, 32, 33, 34, the average lifespan was 64 years old. So people were dying.
That.
Yeah, I did too. I've had several anniversaries. But so there was plenty of money, and the federal government thought, well, we can spend it on education. We can spend it on national defense. We can spend it on the agricultural program. We can build roads and bridges. I mean, I'm not saying they were stealing the money, but they were taking the money out of what should have been a dedicated fund.
They repurposed the money.
And now we're $3.5 trillion in arrears. And even if we could pay that back, the current system would go broke by 2040.
And when you say we would pay that back, you're talking about the taxpayer.
We the taxpayer, yes, sir.
It's our bill. Well, that's the thing I don't think people, the government owes. No, the government is us.
The government is us. On the floor, at the forum of the Republican convention, it's almost like it's on Drudge Report, where the budget clock is ticking.
Right.
And I looked last night. I was watching it at 15 trillion 900 billion. But just since the convention started, our debt has increased over $3.5 billion. Yeah. We can't sustain that, Chuck. We're Greece.
And I'm not sure that people, the American, that's why I'm here. I mean, I'm not making any money working around advocating for seniors, but I think we need to wake up and wake everybody else up. It's knowledge that rules ignorance, as Madison said. It always will. So we need to know what's going on as citizens. I'm just a citizen. I'm not running for anything.
That's right.
I ran across something, and I've been sharing with people around here that some of them, well, not many of them knew it because it's kind of obscure. And I ran across a quote from Washington that describes, it was very interesting. He said, this is what government is, or that isn't. This is what government is, and this is what government can be. And I thought, oh my God, he just summed this up in like a couple of sentences. And this is what he said, and you may be familiar with it, but I want to leave you with it because it's just deep. He said, government is not reason. Government is not, eloquent. Government is force. It's like fire. It's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. And my problem is, as I looked at this kind of prophecy with government for us, we're at the fearful master point in this. We are no longer having government as our servant. We are servants of the government, and it needs to be turned around. And I'm not really sure if the American people are willing to do that or can do that, but that's what we need to do.
Chuck, I couldn't agree more. I think it was George Bernard Shaw, the playwright, was once asked, who do you miss the most in life that you've known? He said, I miss the most is the man that I should have become. And I think the American people can become what they want to become, what they need to become to make this country great again, to have the strength, the courage, the confidence to do that, just like George Bernard Shaw said, the man I should have become. That's going to save this country.
Well, the way we do it, in my humble opinion, is we need to go back to the future. We need to go back to the Founding Fathers to find out who we are so that we can create a future for us and our children, but it's all through knowledge. We have to know who we are. Right now we're wandering around, as far as I'm concerned, saying, are we socialists? Are we Marxists? Are we Americans? Are we capitalists? Are we... People don't know. You need to define who you are, then you can define your purpose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, thanks
I agree.
for agreeing with me.
Hey, yeah.
It makes me feel better.
Chuck, great to have the opportunity to be with you, and good luck to Generation America. I'm so happy that organization is up and running.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you for your support.